It is the sound of Mark Anthony and an 80s vibe here on Curveballs on Phoenix FM from his album Reckless Caution. And Mr. Mark Anthony joins me in the studio now. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I am good, thank you.
Good,
How
good.
about yourself?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm very well. I was really impressed by the last guest. I felt like I was just sitting there watching a bit of a private concert, and then when he went, I thought, oh, I've got to do some work now. but yeah, I'm very well, thanks.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So yes, Josh Emerson did put on a great set earlier.
He really did.
So yeah, you'll be home and pulling out your acoustic and trying to.
I will actually, yeah. I will. I mean, I've got a few guitars at home, so I know that will be, tonight getting back and thinking, right, that's what I aspire to be now.
Yes.
So.
Next time you're in, we'll see some results. I'm sure.
Get the guitar there.
Excellent. So, welcome to Phoenix FM. You're a Phoenix FM first timer.
First timer, yeah, first
Good
timer.
stuff.
Haven't been to this part of the world in a long time.
Right up. Well,
Yeah.
it's good that you're here tonight. Where did we get you from?
Where did you get me from? You got me from Finsbury Park in North London. That's where I've sort of come from tonight, and I think we've kind of been following what each other has been doing on the online world,
Indeed.
be it perhaps Facebook or Twitter.
Indeed, we're just so 21st century.
Of course,
aren't we?
of course. We've moved on from an 80s vibe just for this
Yes,
conversation.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
You've got one album coming out already out.
Already
I
out,
should say,
yeah.
called Reckless Caution, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
Yes.
can you remember when you first got into music and what got you into it?
Yeah, I was about 13 or 14 in school, and myself and my friends only had really two things that were important in our world, and that was music and football. So we were obsessed with football, and we were obsessed with music in the way that we would write on little scraps of paper, writing melodies and rhymes, and imitating perhaps singers and rappers that were prominent at that period in our lives. And then really just from then I've always been doing sort of music, not necessarily at any sort of professional level. And then probably about 8 years ago now, myself and two old friends of mine formed a group called the Meds Collective, and we were really, really busy for about 5 years, just writing, recording and performing everywhere, mainly around the UK. And then that came to a natural end where we released an album, released an EP, released a couple of singles, and then I decided to just record some solo music, and here I am now. So,
Indeed.
yeah, that's the short version of everything. So.
Righto.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good job you didn't go for the long version then.
No, we'd be here until about 6 tomorrow morning.
We've not quite got enough room. But not quite enough time left of the show. But we have got time to listen to another track from your album. What track shall we listen to next?
Let us listen to a track called London City, which was the second single that I released from the album and one of my favourites from the album.
And here it is.
Yeah.
Possibly the only track to end with a traffic report. That is Mark Anthony and London City from the album Reckless Caution. So Mark, how would you describe your sound? Because you do kind of, I mean, the two tracks we've heard so far are quite similar, but you do veer off on other tangents on the album, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. When I started recording the album, not that I knew it was going to be an album at the time, but once I started recording tracks, I remember saying to the producer at the time, his name's Oliver Radio, that I wanted the tracks to be diverse, that really kind of reflects me, because I'm into everything from rock to Britpop to hip hop to rap and jazz, funk. So I just wanted it to be a little bit diverse, rightly or wrongly. And then once we selected the tracks for the album, I think it really reflected that. But I primarily rap, but yeah, my musical tastes are everything from Madness to to hip hop to Queen to Green Day, a really, really eclectic mix of artists.
Would you say that there are some artists who you can really feel the influence on the album? Do you see that some artists more strongly than others?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the song. I mean, the song that that you just played, London City. Although I was primarily I rapped on it. I think a lot of my Britpop influence was in that song. I was a huge Blur fan. I still am, and I think that influence is really in there. There's another song on the album called Scar Train, and I think that reflects the facts that I was a huge Scar fan, and I still am. I was really into bands like Madness and the Specials and the Beat and the Selector, a lot of the old Scar acts. And there's a ballad on there called Thank You that's very sort of piano orientated, and I think that some of the slower Queen tracks perhaps influenced me there. So I think it just depends on the song for me.
Okay. Okay. Right. Well, we'll hear a bit more of those influences after we've heard your first musical selection. And it's a bit of Queen and Killer Queen. So what are your memories of this track?
My memories of this track is getting into Queen in the early 90s, unfortunately at the time when Freddie Mercury actually died. And I remember they played a tribute concert at Wembley Stadium, and I watched it on the television and I thought, this band is amazing. And it was the first time I saw a performance of Killer Queen, which they showed at this tribute concert, and that was my memory of it. I remember recording it on my VHS video recorder, and I've still got that tape. I'm hoping that a museum's going to adopt it at some stage, but that's my first memory. So.
Right, so, and here is the track. Queen and Killer Queen here on Curveballs on Phoenix FM, as chosen by my second guest of the evening, Mr. Mark Anthony.
Yeah.
I should say were you consciously named after a character in Julius Caesar?
Not that I am aware of. No, I do often get asked the question, but not that I'm aware of. So, but I don't know if my parents have got some secret they just haven't told me. Hey, but it is my real name.
Well, there you have it. Right, just checking. Probably had someone listening going, why has he got like a Shakespearean?
Yeah, I know. And I wasn't married to Jennifer Lopez either, so.
Oh well.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, I think she might be back on the market actually. So you
Oh,
know,
right.
you might
never
stand a
know.
chance.
I might tweet her and see if my tweet amongst millions and millions of tweets that she perhaps gets a day will reach her. We'll see. I don't think it will, but a man can hope.
Crashing on.
I love your optimism.
Indeed. So we're going to hear another track from your album, Reckless Caution. In it, where was the album recorded?
The album was recorded at a recording studio called Attic Studios, which is in London, and it was recorded with a producer called Oliver Radio, who I met shortly after my old group kind of disbanded, and I just said to him, I just want to record some tracks. I haven't got a clue what I'm going to do with the tracks, but let's just get in the studio, record some tracks, and we'll just see where it goes. And then we recorded I had about 60 or 70 ideas, but we recorded about between 30 and 40 tracks. And oddly enough, once we finished recording the tracks, we were really proud of what had been recorded. But then we just walked away from it and got on with our lives. And then about a year later, myself and Oliver decided to meet up again at his studio and reviewed what we had recorded about a year prior, and thought, actually, there's some good stuff here. It's probably worth putting an album together. So we really had to cut it down to 13 tracks for the album, which was a really enjoyable and weird experience because some of the tracks we totally forgot about. And we thought we'll all keep it hush-hush. And then in August, I made an announcement that I was going to be releasing an album on October the 31st. Just happened to be Halloween. There was no connection at all. And everyone was like, you didn't tell us you recorded an album? Because it was all done on the quiet, because I didn't want the pressure of everyone saying, oh, when's it coming out? When's this? When's that? I just wanted to get in the studio and have a bit of fun. And that's the kind of story, really.
I suppose it tied in with Halloween quite well, because it was quite a shock to everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I even had my mum saying to me, I didn't know you recorded an album. But it really was a case of, genuinely, when we were recording it, I just wanted to get in the studio. I didn't know whether the music was going to be any good, in terms of good enough to put out. Otherwise would have just moved on and nothing would have happened. So it was really, really good that we were proud of the material we recorded, and a hell of a lot of that credit has got to go to Oliver. Because he's an absolutely amazing producer and a multi-instrumentalist, because all of the music on the album are real instruments. So it was really good, really a pleasure to record with him.
Excellent. We're going to listen to another track from the album now. It's other end of the spectrum
Yes.
to the others.
The other two,
It's I Still Miss You.
That's correct, yeah.
So yes, when did you get the idea for this track?
Well, I think it was the most personal song on the album because I wrote the song about people that were in my life that aren't around anymore because they've passed away, unfortunately, mainly due to cancer. So one night when I was coming home from a studio, I think, about 2 a.m, just sort of ended up just writing a song that took about probably half an hour to write, and then it was quite brave of me because I sang on the song as opposed to rapping or spoken word, and I thought it came out well, and that was the song really. I Still Miss You.
And here it is. It is the sound of Mark Anthony, and from the album Reckless Caution. Here on Curveballs on Phoenix FM. Whoops, forgot to press a button there. That track was entitled "I Still Miss You," and we were talking during that song. It's the first track that you've actually sung on. So
yes.
While you were sitting there recording it, you must be like, "Oh my god, how is this going to sound?"
Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, I had an idea about how I wanted it to sound, and whilst I was recording, it sounded all right, but I think it took the encouragement of the producer, Oliver, to say, oh, yeah, no, it sounds all right, just keep on doing it, did a few takes. And, yeah, recording was a lot easier than I thought it would be for me, because I thought that I'd probably have to do quite a number of takes to get the pitching right and all the rest of it. But no, it seemed to work. I'm glad to say there was no auto-tune on it. But yeah, no, all seriousness. Yeah, but all seriousness, I was proud of the achievement of being able to record a song like that, and it's seeming to work and gain some good feedback from people who'd heard the song and had seen the video.
Excellent,
yeah.
Good stuff. Where can people get their hands on the album?
They can get their hands on the album all over the digital world, including iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Google Music, YouTube Music, and through my website at markanthonymusic.net. You can actually order hard copies of the album on CD. And through my website there are links to all of the digital avenues as well, but I really try and direct people to my website at markanthonymusic.net, and there's a list of methods of how you can or how people can buy the album or download the album should they wish to.
Excellent, good stuff. Right, we'll chat a bit more after we've heard your next musical selection, and it's a bit of the Killers and Mr. Brightside. So
that's correct.
What are your memories of this track?
My memories of this track are that I always heard it on the radio when it first came out in the late sort of noughties, but about 3 years ago I went to see the Killers at Wembley Stadium, and the Killers did a full concert, hadn't performed this song, and Brandon Flowers, the frontman, pretended that they were winding down and they were about to leave the stage, and then he said, but I've got one more song for you, not sure if you know it, and then he just did the first line of the song, and the whole of Wembley Stadium went absolutely mad. And I think I did more male bonding than I ever did before, because everyone was kissing each other and jumping on each other's backs and stuff, and it really just was a magical experience. The sun was out, drinks were flowing, everyone was just in a good mood, and the performance was absolutely awesome. So that's my favourite memory of Mr. Brightside by the Killers.
And we're going to try and recreate that
in the studio.
Right now, while the track's on. Enjoy, listeners. We certainly will.
Brilliant. Yeah, basically it was like that. It was brilliant.
Mr. Brightside here on Curveballs on Phoenix FM. Right, we've finished trying to reenact that moment at Wembley Stadium. Yeah. we're a little bit tired now, but it was worth it.
Classic.
It was chosen by my second guest of the evening, Mr. Mark Anthony.
Hello.
We're going to hear another track from your album Reckless Caution in a moment. But one thing I say is, what inspired the name Reckless Caution?
Reckless Caution, because whilst I was recording I'd say tracks, because in terms of the album, we didn't know it was going to be an album. So whilst I was recording the tracks, because there was really no pressure, I was being really, really reckless in terms of the ideas that were put on the album. So any idea that was in my head, on that particular day or in that particular week. I was just really just putting it down into music, no holds barred. And then once we revisited the material about a year after we finished recording it, we were really cautious about what we were picking from the album. And then I thought to myself, Reckless Caution, don't know. And then I went on holiday to Vietnam where I had a lot of thinking time, thinking, I've got this album coming out and I've got to have these plans in my head. And the name Reckless Caution just kept on coming back to me. And I thought, actually, Reckless Caution seems to work. So I'm going to name the album Reckless Caution. And yeah, haven't had any regrets yet.
Oh, and I'm sure you won't.
Yeah.
Let's hear another track from it. What track should we listen to next?
Carnival, which is the third track of the album, which is about my memories of going to the Notting Hill Carnival when I was younger, mixed with seeing footage of carnivals around the world, like in Brazil and the Caribbean, that I unfortunately haven't had the experience of being at myself, but trying to visualize what it would be like. And I was also listening to quite a lot of African music around that time when I wrote the track as well. So I put some African sort of music influences in there as well. And the track came out as Carnival. So it's the third track of the album.
And just after we tried to reenact a busy Wembley Stadium, now we're going to try and reenact a carnival.
A carnival.
It is the sound of Mark Anthony and Carnival here on Curveballs on Phoenix FM.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, sound good there. We'll listen to one more track from the album in a moment.
Yeah.
But I've just remembered what I was going to ask you, and it's when it comes to bringing your sound to the masses, have you had many chances to play live recently?
Yeah, there was a quite a big show which I performed at about 2 months ago, and basically they're not sure if you remember the band, but there was a band called E17. Who were sort of huge, back in the day. And at the moment, the person who created E17 and wrote the songs, a guy called Tony Mortimer, is writing and recording solo music. And I was lucky enough to be his support act at his solo show at the Islington Academy about 2 months ago. It was supposed to be a tour, but the tour's been postponed. But I was lucky enough to be the support act there, which was really good timing for me because it was just before the album came out. So I was lucky enough to be able to perform some tracks from there. And my first main solo show will be at the St. Moritz nightclub in Soho on Saturday, the 4th of March, which is in about 6 weeks or so. So, so that's going to be my first sort of proper solo show. And then I've got some festival dates coming up in the summer, but the dates are to be confirmed, but it will all be on my website. So, it should be a busy year.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Good stuff. We'll say the website is markanthonymusic.net. So people know where to stay tuned.
Certainly,
So let's listen to one more track from the album, and you did touch on it earlier.
Yes.
So tell us about the track Thank You.
So it's a track called Thank You, which is the last track on the album, and again, it's a little bit different to all of the other tracks because it's neither really singing or rapping. It's more like spoken word, but the chorus is very melodic, and I just thought it was quite a beautiful song to end the album with. And it's just a thanks to I don't know, someone out there who's been granted me the luck to record the album and just do music, which I enjoy. So that's what the track is about, but make of it what you wish when you hear it.
It is the sound of Mark Anthony and Thank You here on Curveballs on Phoenix FM from the album Reckless Caution. So Mark, remind us where people can get their hands on the album.
Yep, at markanthonymusic.net, but the album is all over digital suppliers, should I say, like iTunes, Spotify, Google Music, Amazon, YouTube Music, anywhere where you can buy music, it will be there. But if you fancy having a hard copy of the album, which is on CD, you can obtain a copy through my website at markanthonymusic.net, and all of the information on me as an artist is also on the website in terms of what I'm up to.
Excellent.
So,
and remind
yeah.
us where people can next see you playing live as well.
At the St Moritz nightclub in Soho in London on Saturday the 4th of March. I'll be on at 8 p.m. I believe. So I'll be recording. I'll be performing the album and a couple of other bits and pieces as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. And if you have any shout-outs, last but not least, do make them known.
Yeah, I will make them known. I would like to give a shout out to Oliver Radio for the album, because he did a really great job on the album, and I believe he's listening to the show now. I'd like to shout out a couple of other people who collaborated with me on the album. That's Jake Telford, who played the sax, and Heidi J, who did the backing vocals on the album. I'll do the obligatory shout out to my mother and my brother and just all of my friends and family and people that have supported me. So I hope I've not missed anyone out, but shout out to you all, because a lot of the support I have had has been through social media such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So everyone who has supported me, a shout out to you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
www.markanthonymusic.net is the place to go to find out more. I think it's safe to say that the future starts here. Mark Anthony, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, everyone.